Dr. David Klee has over 30 years experience as both a teacher of the flute and as a professional musician. He has performed in all kinds of musical organizations, ranging from classical orchestras to heading his own jazz group, the Jazz Express. With these Pro Minute video series, Dr. Klee will share some of his secrets with you on how to become a better flutist.
Hello, my name is Dr. David Klee and welcome to another Pro Minute series. This is a video 6 of a series of a bunch of new videos I put together to give us a more in-depth look at improvisation. If you remember from the previous videos, video 2, we talked about a horizontal movement going up through scales. Video 3 had to do with vertical movement, which is more like going through the arpeggios of the actual chords. And then video 4 had to deal with a combination of both, horizontal and vertical movement. And finally, the last video talked about building basic motivic melodies, using fragments, and then growing with it from there. This video, what's coming up on your computer screen right now, shows some patterns. Because what is jazz? Jazz is a series of patterns where you're working your way through the different chords. So as you can see through this scale patterns sheet I have, you know, you have scales in like diatonic scales, you have scales in thirds, you have scales every 4 notes, you have all these different patterns. So I'm going to go through them for you. Probably your first thing would be you need to learn all your major scales. Because even in classical music you need to know your major scales. So I would learn all your 12 major scales. I would also learn all the relative minor scales. And then the second pattern here, this shows pattern in thirds. So let's go back to that first scale and I'll play it for you. Of course we all do that. But it's amazing, you can even play the major scale if you add a little jazz articulation to it. And all of a sudden it starts to sound more like jazz. The next one, pattern 2, is scales in thirds. Oh, we've heard that before, haven't we? And then pattern 3 is every 4 notes. And then pattern 4 works its way up. So what we have here is a series of patterns that can be used as you develop your motivic activity, developing your melodic line for your jazz solos. And I think what you'll find is that these really will help you develop what I call interesting lines. Okay, at this time, the blues song is going to come up on your computer screen. Now this time it has no motivic activity, it shows no melodies, it's just a basic chord structure. Now what you could do with this now, as the MP3 files you can do, you can start using what you've learned so far, learn off this scale patterns, and start to develop your own melodies in jazz. I'll just demonstrate a little bit playing around for you. I know I did. We use some of the scale patterns we have on the scale sheet as well as arpeggiated patterns we learned earlier, and by putting it all together, all of a sudden it starts to make for a really interesting solo. And by doing this, you'd be surprised how in no time you can really make this sound good. So again, you could use horizontal movement using your blues scales on all these different scale patterns. You could do that. You could think of vertical movement using your chords, outlining the triads and the sevenths of the chords. And then you can also think of putting it together. And then what you do lastly, like we did in the last video series, is to think of, you want to start with something, then you want to build, then you want to develop it. So you always want to start with a basic motivic, pattern and then work with it, develop it, morph it. That could mean you can get higher, you can get lower, you can get faster. You could do all these cool things. And then what will happen over time, you'll develop a really, really interesting line. So you ought to give this a try. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by doing this, just how easy this will come to you. For review, what you could do is go back and look at all my music videos I have on YouTube and on all my original music, and to kind of give you an idea how I put this all together. And don't feel bashful about writing it out. You know, literally take this 12-bar blues and write it out. Write your basic motivic activity and then kind of sit there and think about, well, how could I embellish that? How could I grow with that? And write something out. And then try it on your flute. You'll know real quick if it works. And then write a little more and try it. And eventually, you'll get to the point you won't even have to write it. You can think it as you play it. And I think this will work really well for you. So you owe it to yourself to give yourself a real shot at this and really try it. And I think you'll be very pleasantly surprised on the outcome. And hopefully this video series will help you on your way to becoming a good jazzer. This is Dr. David Klee, and thank you.